right, so to start off, my resume, before I was a forklift and heavy equipment mechanic, I used to do a lot of small engine repair stuff, late 90s for about 3 or 4 years, and then I went to a construction company, and we did everything from small engine stuff up to big stuff. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from, and just getting ready to do the changing of the guard between the snowblower and the lawnmower for the season. And I was getting ready to pack the snowblower away and do my routine to make sure it still starts in the fall when I go to check it. And kind of made me start thinking that maybe other people would want to know this, because back when I was doing that stuff, every time it would snow the first time, we'd get inundated with snow blowers that wouldn't start because they had bad gas in them. The bad gas would be, some people call it stale gas. Basically what happens is, without getting too technical and pretending like I know something that I don't, the boom boom part of the gas evaporates away, and then it doesn't go boom boom in your engine, and then it doesn't start. And you would see this a lot with snow blowers, like I said, that have been sitting a long time, in generators also. They do that a lot because people just put the gas in them and they put them in the garage. You know, they run them the one time, and then the thing's sitting there with a half a tank for a year or two in the garage, and power goes out, you go to hook it up, and then it won't start. So I'm going to show you a couple of tricks on how to prevent that, and maybe a couple of tricks on, if you got one that's got bad gas in it, how to get it going again. So yeah, let's get into it. Oh, and you know what? Before I start, I mean, you're dealing with gas here, so, you know, do all the precautions that you would dealing with a flammable liquid, meaning, you know, don't do this by candlelight or smoke cigarettes. And I usually wear gloves just to keep the stank off of my hands. So yeah, keep that in mind. So what we're working with here today is a 21-inch Troy-built single-stage snow blower, snow thrower, depending on what you want to call it. It's got some wear and tear issues. I've had it for probably 10 years now. Crack here that replaced the fuel tank mount that broke a couple years back. Belt housing, but I mean, it still runs good. It's small, but it's all I really need for my climate and my size of my property. So it's worked out pretty good for me so far. We got her mounted up here on the old patio furniture workbench. This right here is my fuel tank. You'll have one if you have one of these somewheres. This is very general information, just so you know. This isn't going to cover everything. This is, like I said, this is just basic stuff, but it should apply to just about anything you own. This over here is your carburetor. That up there is your muffler. We won't be playing with that today. Choke, all that jazz, the standard fare. So generally speaking, with gasoline fuel, my rule of thumb is, and from my experience, you get about a year of storage out of one of these, and that's a year coming out of the pump, not a year sitting in the can. So that's when you start the timers, when you pump it out of the ground. Now, like I said in the beginning of the video, over time it's just sitting there. The boom boom part of the gasoline will evaporate, and then it won't ignite inside your engine, or it will ignite, and it just makes it run really crappy. One thing before we even get started that you need to remember is you got to have a decent fuel cap on it. You want to make sure you got a gasket in there, it's clean, it's venting. That's probably one of the most important things that'll keep your fuel from going bad, is just having a good fuel cap. So the fuel in this tank, we didn't get much snow this winter. I think I've only ran this thing twice, and the first time I ran it, I just ran it just because I wanted to make sure the thing would run. It was only like 2 inches, and it took me like 20 minutes to do. We had one decent storm, and yeah, I used about a half a tank of fuel. So I filled this back in end of September, beginning of October. So this fuel is getting to that 1 year mark that I'm talking about. So normally if I get a snowstorm in March, I'll just, you know, pack it away, and it'll be good because the fuel's not that old. But this year, I mean, come when I want to start this thing back up for the winter time, the fuel's going to be in there almost a year. And like I said, that's usually my point in time where I want to replace it. So I'm just going to do it now, put some fresh fuel in it, so that way there, when I start it up come the end of fall, you know what I mean, it's running good. Now, the tools to drain this is going to vary depending on your make and model. Mine's pretty simple and easy to get to. Sometimes you got covers you got to remove, but your basic deal is fuel tank right down there. Hose comes out, and goes into the carburetor, and you just want to get this hose off of here. Like I said, you might have some covers you got to remove. You might even have a valve to shut the fuel off, which is handy to have. I don't have that on this, but we've got a drain pan down here to catch any drips. Fuel safe container. This is an empty fuel can. Pliers of some sort. These are the closest ones I had, and I'm going to use these hemostats for clamping off the fuel line. So here's what we're looking at here. Got this hose right here. That's from the fuel tank, and this hose right here is actually the prime bulb that's up there. You got to push that, I don't know, half dozen times when you first start it up to get some fuel up into there to get her started. But this style clamp is your standard fare, and usually you can get them with just a set of pliers, and then you swing them down. Now at this point, put your hemostats on, clamp the fuel off. It's nice to have that just in case things get out of hand. And then you just kind of pull the fuel line off, which isn't always easy. Good trick sometimes. You just kind of gotta lightly rock it back and forth like this, which kind of breaks the seal there, and it'll just pop off. There you go. All right, so let me get the fuel pan out, or the drain pan out of there, and then just kind of stick that in there, crack it loose, and let it drain. I suddenly have to take a pee. Now I'm just going to take this, clamp it off to keep it from dripping, and scooch it out of the way. Tuck it back there. There we go. So this gas is still good, so I'm just going to run this through my lawnmower or my compressor in my van. If you're in a situation where you actually have bad gas in it, you got to figure out a place to dispose of it properly. But yeah, so like I said, that's not a problem for me. Normally at this point in time I'd be done, hook the fuel line back up, fill the tank up with gas, and run it for like 5 minutes, so that way there I got clean fuel inside the bowl. But if you're running something like a generator that you might not necessarily be running within a year, we'll go a couple steps further. First off, we're draining the fuel bowl. Pretty easy to do. Mine's actually got a drain in it, not all of them do. This one's a drain, and this one is actually the bolt that holds the whole shebang together. So we'll remove that, and I'll show you a couple of little things inside there. All right, we changed the angle for lighting purposes here. We got our drain pan in place, 10 millimeter, and just kind of crack this guy loose. Lefty loosey, righty tighty. As soon as this comes loose, you're going to start getting fuel dumping out of it. This is the use of the drain pan there. Alright, so we got the fuel bowl off. Mine's fairly clean on the inside there. That is the bolt that we removed. Focus, there you go. Things to note when you pull down your fuel bowl, there is a gasket that runs up and around here. That is what seals the fuel in from here. So sometimes when you pull these down, the gasket will actually stick to the lip of the bowl. If that happens, make sure you stick it up in there. Make sure it's all the way in there. So when you tighten it down, you'll cut it. Take a look at the gasket, make sure it's not cracked or damaged in any way. And you also have another gasket on the bottom of the nut here that screws into here. Again, you know, just make sure it's there for one and not cracked or anything of that nature. So at this point in time, if we're talking about like a generator or something of that nature, you checked all your gaskets, everything looks good, everything is nice and clean. It was working when you put it away. You got to put your fuel line back on, of course. Don't want to forget that, or your feet will get wet next time you go to fill it. You're pretty much done at that point, nice and dry. Some people say that will cause the gaskets to dry rot sitting in there. I tend to disagree with that. One, I've never seen that happen, and two, that's how they ship them, is dry. If you're nervous, you could put a little bit of oil around the rubber parts of the gaskets if you're worried about that. But like I said, I've never seen that be a problem. And torque this up to spec and click. There you go. And yeah, like I said, you're done. And then if, you know, like I said, if it's a generator and your power goes out, you fill it up with gas. If it was running before, it should run again. Okay, so let's say you put the thing away. You didn't do any of this stuff with the gas, and now you want to start it, being a generator or pretty much any piece of power equipment that runs on a little gas engine like this, and it won't start. You smell the gas; it's kind of funky smelling, and you want to get it running again. Pretty much everything we've done up to this point might be enough to get it running again. Drain the fuel, drain the bowl, fill it back up, and see if it starts. If it still doesn't start, check your fuel filter. Obviously, this one doesn't have one. They're usually in line of the fuel line, kind of like this, usually oval, usually small little deal, but you'll know it if you see it. The carburetor is usually the culprit when they won't start, especially if the fuel is really bad. Quick tricks you could do with those: take the carburetor off. They're usually all 10 millimeters. You got some linkage up here. I'm not going to go through pulling this one off because they're different on everything, so I mean, it's not really going to show you anything. But pull the carburetor off, have it sitting in your hand, get yourself some carburetor cleaner, take your little straw, and pretty much just blow carburetor cleaner through any hole you see. These newer carburetors, with all the EPA stuff, there's really not too much you could do with them, to be honest with you. But sometimes, like up inside here, there's an idle jet, which is usually the one that goes bad because of the fuel sitting in the bottom of the bowl. When that goes bad, it'll clog up the ports in the idle jet. So once this screws out and you got the bowl off of it, you flip it upside down, you'll see a jet inside there. Just spray your carburetor cleaner in there. Like I said, any hole, wear safety glasses, because sometimes your hole you spray into, the exit's right at your face, and it's a good way to, you know, get carburetor cleaner in your eye. I'm talking from experience here. And yeah, all that, you put it back together, hook the fuel up to it. If it still doesn't start, you're probably going to need a carburetor. And luckily, they're all made in China nowadays, so you could probably get one for 60 bucks depending on the machine you're running. Honda ones are a little bit more. But yeah, like I said, there's really not too much to them, but I've seen that hundreds of times with bad fuel, not only at work, but people, hey, you know, my generator, it's been sitting for a couple of years and now it won't start. It ran great when I put it away, and now it just, you know what I mean? And like, it's like a 10 minute quick fix most of the time, just getting the shitty fuel out of it, putting good fuel into it. And remember, good fuel is the stuff you just get out of the pump, not the stuff sitting in the can. Because if you filled the machine with the can, and the fuel that's in the machine is bad, more than likely the fuel that's inside the can is probably bad as well. So again, doesn't start, drain the fuel out of the bowl, put new fuel in it, see if it starts. If it starts, then you're golden. If not, you got to start messing with the carburetor. If you can't get the carburetor to flush out with some carburetor cleaner, you got to get a new carburetor. 9 times out of 10. That's usually what ends up happening, especially if it was running when you put it away. This goes for snow blowers, generators, pressure washers. I mean, you never really see lawnmowers because people use their lawnmowers all the time. So, but yeah, so I'm going to fill this back up with fuel and give her a tug. I mean, I know this is empty and it's probably better off that way, but I like to store it with fuel in it. And another thing to remember too is fill it up to the top with fuel. I know some people say, you know, just put a little bit of fuel in it. The less fuel you have in it, when it evaporates, there's less there for it to have. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of hard to explain, but yeah, just fill it up all the way. Take my word for it. Get it up to where you normally would if you were filling it up to use it, is what I'm getting at. And yeah, if you do all this, it should start for you come the fall when you want to bust it out and start humping it around, blowing snow in the neighborhood there. Another quick thing to check, you know, while you're looking at it, which I'll do off camera because again, this is specific just to this machine, so it's really not going to help too many people. Pull the cover off the belt, see what your belt looks like. If it's all cracked up, needs to be replaced. Your scoops, check those, make sure they're, you know, still attached well and they're actually making contact down here. Not contact, but close. And then you got your wear strip down here. Mine's actually, I get 2 uses out of mine. Another jizz bag with his fucking muffler fucking hanging off the fucking back. All right. Another good thing to check is your wear strip down here. Mine's reversible, so I get two uses out of mine. When it wears out, I just flip it. This one I'll probably get another season out of. You know, your bearings and stuff like that. Make sure nothing's getting ready to fall apart, because the last thing you want is this to not work when it's snowing, and then you're out there with a shovel like the rest of the jerk-offs. All right, that's it. I think I hit all the high points. That should help you at least avoid it. It's one of those ounce of prevention could fix a pound of grief type deals. Fuel stabilizers, I know someone's going to be asking about that. Fuel stabilizers do work, but I kind of think they give you a false sense of security. And I've seen more engines brought in that wouldn't start that had fuel stabilizers, or at least they said they put fuel stabilizers in them. And yeah, it was the same condition. You might get an extra year out of them, but yeah, it's not necessary. It's better just to do it this way. You know, whether you know what I mean? Because like I said before, the last thing you want to do is be messing with this thing when the snow's coming down or the power's out and your old lady's yelling at you because the freezer's melting and your food's gonna go bad and you can't get your generator started and things like that. So any questions, leave them down in the thing and I'll try to answer them. And sorry about the background noise, like the jizz bag fucking ice cream truck guy 2 streets over that just decided to go down the block. And yeah, I'm in my backyard. I'm not in the sound studio here, guys. So yeah, they're gonna be background noise. So yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. So to start off, one of those fucking cars. Fuck you, fucking douche. It's the fuel tank bracket that broke last year. I'm missing a hubcap. I got a crack here. Fucking airplanes. Alright, well, we got the fuel bowl off. Everything's pretty clean in here. That's one thing you want to check. Fuck you and your fucking motorcycle. Okay, douchebag. You got it.